Good afternoon, everyone. It's me and Jennifer again for our second podcast.
Yay.
Super exciting. So just as a quick intro, in case you hear some background noises, we're both in places where we're not alone and Airbnb for Jennifer. So a little unpredictable if somebody comes in or so. As a quick introduction, I'm Kanika Frings. I'm the co-founder of DIMA Mallorca in Mallorca, Spain. And this is Jennifer Millar, who is the founder of Cellular Transformation. And we are meeting today to talk about a collaboration that we're embarking on together next year. Well, we've already started, but really we're expanding it next year. And it's very exciting. And so this is really what we're doing today. We're not going to talk about what CT is so much as we did the first podcast on that, and we'll put a link below for anybody that's interested in just the basics and where it came from and what we do in cellular transformation and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So next year we're going to offer a 9-week teaching program that is deepening into the cellular transformation process. It is based on the 9 principles that are covered in Jennifer's new book, which is coming out next year. And that's a little bit what we're going to cover today. Not so much the in-depth about every one of those principles, but just so you guys can get an idea of what we'll be doing next year, basically. Would you like me to just read the 9 principles out just so people get a little taste of what it is? Of course, again, there will be more information coming on that on the websites, both of our websites in January, but we just wanted you guys to know because people have been asking, and there will be also the dates already just to have that in mind. So the module number 1 is called Sacred Space and Holy Guidance. Module and principle number 2 is the Divine Love Affair. Module 3, Transformational Prayer. Module 4 is Only Love is Real. Module 5 is the Language of Energy. Module 6 is Conscious Communication. Module 7 is Vulnerability and Fear. Module 8 is Meditation and Contemplation. And Module 9 is Service and Gratitude. And just quickly, each module will be a week long, and they come in a series of 3. So they're behind each other. It's a spring series, a summer series, and an autumn series. And the dates too we'll put out at the end so you know and why we designed it like that we'll go into as well. But maybe you want to say a little bit about how these modules came about, how these principles came about.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I'm really excited about in this is it's never been done before, as far as I'm aware, in terms of the lineage of teachers and the work that I'm doing. It's always only ever been in the practice of sacred space, oral tradition, basically. So I've always had a passion from the first time I discovered this work. I immediately wanted to start writing it down and try to convey the teachings and the wisdom structure in written form. That was 20 years ago I started, and it's been one of the most challenging things to do because, as anyone who's done CT would agree, the teachings and the wisdom structure and the way the whole space operates without having an agenda, being led by the feminine principle, which is really following the intuitive language of energy in every moment, which is what's doing the healing and the awakening. It's really difficult to take this non-linear, really nature of expansion and try to categorize it and compartmentalize it and put it into some sort of order that makes sense to the mind. And I, for one, I'm very intuitive, yes, But I also noticed through my student years that when I would quiz my teacher, and he never wrote much down, if anything, really, maybe his own private writings, but nothing that was published. And when I would quiz him and let my mind pick apart certain things, and suddenly my mind or intellect grabbed and bit onto something, then I would just run with the teachings in my body. I would suddenly, it's like everything would just slot into place. And I think that's where I always had a passion to write it down. I knew one day, if I could convey this information that I'm taking in through osmosis into the cells of my body and manage to somehow put it in written form in an understandable way, that it could really speed up your digestion and absorption of the material. And so that has been a long time coming. It's taken me a long time even to extrapolate the core principles and the 9 principles of healing and awakening, the current name I've given to them. Book's not finished, by the way, will be soon. That those 9 principles, the reason I ended up choosing 9, where I don't even feel like I chose them per se, they kept bubbling up as the main themes that I leaned on, the main tools I worked with to get me from where I was when I started on the path to where I am today, which are 2 very different places. And the essential synergistic relationship between those principles that literally allow for alchemy to take place at the cellular level. And of course, that's quite abstract. Like, just saying that is abstract, which is the point and purpose of creating this teaching program, so that what is abstract and theoretical can be pulled into experiential form. But ultimately, the 9 principles are the nuts and bolts of what I feel are the core pieces that you want to master in your life to speed up your ability to transform. And not only transform, but transformation for the purpose of awakening, so that you're not getting bogged down and caught up in disconnected patterns and swallowed up by your own cellular history and memory, hooked and seduced by programming outside of you, even by spiritual teachers. There's so many components to it that these principles, I feel, are really how to walk into your power in the world, a love-based power, and to understand how power works and how energy works and your role in relationship to the world. There's so many parts. We're not going to go into all the details, but these are the 9 the ones that after working with thousands of people over the last years, and in mainly my own process of healing, these 9 pieces were what I leaned on the most. So rather than just, as they do, those of you who come and do CT, you know that these are what I'm teaching all the time. It's what's constantly coming through. But in that field where I'm working one-on-one or doing group work, and we're all in this high pressured sacred container of transformation, which is not too dissimilar to like doing plant medicine, let's say, where you're in a sacred space from beginning to end, 4 days, 8 days, whatever it is, and it's moving very fast. The energy's coming through and moving really quickly. So as these teachings are coming through, whether it's about learning to listen, to interpret and back up the language of energy, the intuitive language of energy coming through you, that we might touch on the pardon?
Module number 5.
Exactly. We might touch on the different teachings here and there at different times, because like it is a synergistic relationship between them all. But so many people have come to me, just like I did with can you slow that down? Like, can you say more about that? Can we dive in deeper to this? I really want to unpack that. And in the field, when I'm working with people and you have the different layers coming up, I'm not fully in charge of what's happening in that space. I follow the breadcrumbs and let the universe unravel. And I'm super excited, not just the written material of the book, which will be the material for the 9 modules, but I'm super excited to tease out and like kind of take a pause, step back, look at this massive body of wisdom and magic, and grab the core 9 pieces, lay them down, press pause, zoom in, and unpack and dig in, and you have time to ask questions and play it out and rub your nose in it, especially where it's not just the theory, which I'm offering, which is the written material, but then the collaboration with DIMA, which gets me so excited, because then living in community, which I also did for in all my student years, living in community with the theory component and having the ability to practice it in real time, live with other souls of like mind, you move so fast. I mean, I would have given anything years back to have had this, to have had something I could chew on and read before I go to bed at night and play out and practice with my peers on the path. I would have given anything for that. I know that it would have, I mean, it was perfect, obviously, how I did it, but it would have sped things up tremendously for me. Like,
especially, I just keep on thinking, especially because it just looks, to those that have done cellular transformation workshops with Jennifer, it looks like something magical is happening, and you do not understand it. You can't understand it with the mind. Also, because there's so many things happening at the same time, which is why each of these 9 principles are so important to understand and to really deepen into, get it on a cellular level. But just because the mind wants to know, it's like there's this part where it's like, trust is there, and this feels right to me, this makes sense to me, I can feel this going through my body, I can feel the healing of it and all of that. But the mind is like, how is this happening? I mean, that's what it was like for me. And I've had the privilege to be so close with you now for so many years, as your student, and it's a rare gift I had to be able to have hours and hours of just asking you questions and basically being super inquisitive and getting a lot of information that now will be written down. And I'm so excited to be able to share this with more people and to practice it, to share it, to have it there written down, to have the information, and then to be in a field that we can just practice and not have to rely on somebody else to take us through that process, but to really learn to do that for ourselves.
Yes, because ultimately what I'm offering is what I did to awaken this channel or ability to do what I do. And when you said earlier, there are so many things happening at the same time, that is so true. Even if I just look at myself in that space, I'm working with people while listening to every nuance that's moving through my physical body, what's happening in my organs, my muscles, and my emotions, my mind, what imprints is my intuition given me, so I know how to work with individuals. But then I'm also reading the group field as well. And I'm listening to this greater intelligence that we call spirit, and always have one eye and one ear on that bigger intelligence that's orchestrating and holding everything. And I also have one eye and one ear on the ego and the programming that's present in the space that wants that light. Obviously, it's like when the light shines, the rats come out. So I've got to watch what's the light want, what's it doing, where does it want us to go? And I got to keep an eye on the rats that are coming out of our bodies, our history, our trauma, our programming, and all of that. I mean, I didn't just wake up one day being able to do that and have the ability to let my body be such a powerful instrument with all these little antennae to read what's going on so telepathically and psychically. That came through practicing and applying and madly committing myself to all of these 9 principles. So
for a long, long time, which I think is also a good thing to mention, that this is not a teacher training. Yeah, it's not about learning to do what Jennifer does, because that did take 20 plus years or so.
Yeah.
But really to get on that path, to really start unraveling it for ourselves and embodying it on a day-to-day basis, and bringing it into whatever our life looks like, whatever our callings are, whatever our life looks like, to bring it there and to learn to sit in the light and support ourselves to keep on transforming.
And to understand what's creating the magic in the space. You know, I think most people would agree they would call it magic. What is that? Where's it coming from? What activates it? What shuts it down? How do I work it in my own life? How do I bring it into my relationship with my husband, wife, kids? You know, how do I, hopefully, for those who are committed enough, change my reality from one where, I go do these workshops and I go meet my spiritual community for X amount of days or weeks, but then I have to go back to my disconnected, slightly darker world. This is offering you a way to intensify your connection to the light, to solidify your position on your own path of awakening, to where hopefully you never have to leave the space, to go back to somewhere that's heavier or denser or less light filled. I mean, when I met my teacher and tasted what was possible in this universe, what existed in this universe, it was like, clear the decks, part the seas, here I come. Like, there was no stopping me. And yet in those first years, I did still have to go back to my 9-to-5 jobs, or the equivalent. Never really did a 9-to-5, but the equivalents, what was dense and heavy. But by applying these principles, the core principles and teachings that didn't have a name of core principles and teachings in those days, it was just instructions given to me by my teacher that I ran with, then it changed my external reality from the inside out. As I practiced changing my molecular structure on the inside with the help of this light, then by law of the universe, everything outside of me changed, and my vibration kept getting higher and higher, to where it was natural and inevitable that I was living more in community. And then I could not live in community to some degree. I was never
in a community that is just as passionate and hungry for this place.
Yes.
Which is my experience as well, which is why we got together in this excitement and in this like synergy of wanting to bring it out there, because it really changes everything. It's has been our experience.
So. Yeah, and the modules next year, 1 week each, 3 weeks sections or segments. They begin with, I'm coming to Europe to do workshops in April and November, and then the 9 modules are spread out in between that time period. So for those who are really hungry to keep deepening, not to just step away, but to stay in the field and keep your finger on the pulse the whole time, keep the energy, the river of chi flowing, then you can stop in for 1 module. We recommend you do all 9, obviously, because that's where you're really going to get it. But it's understandable not everybody can do all 9. Preferably 3 in a row would be the next best option. But you can come into whatever one, and it'll keep you connected in, is my feeling.
And the idea really behind it is why this collaboration. So Jennifer will be providing the teachings and will be in the background from America, so she won't be there in person. but very closely connected to what we're doing and the energy that's coming through. But really to have a practice field. So it's not just to get, okay, you can read the book obviously at home and you can get an understanding of what's going on in one of those principles or in all of them. But then to really take it another level further and to start experimenting with it and practicing and inquiring into it and using the community and using the field and the mirrors in it to really start experiencing it on another level rather than just having a mental understanding of it is what we're aiming for, because we want people to go back home with that principle embodied, integrated into their and of course it's an unfolding, it's a continuum. I mean, we're still unfolding each of them for ourselves in our unique ways, but that you don't have to. We were just sharing about it today that I mean I think everybody knows this, like coming to a workshop, plugging in and then feeling like, oh shit, I need to recharge, and that's great, and it might continue to be that, because of course sitting in a CT workshop is different. It is a field that is intense and the light is pumping through it, but how can we in our own way keep that light coming through our own bodies, in our own reality, in our moment-to-moment experience? So
really allowing that, your relationship to that light, which I know is why everybody comes to the workshops, because they feel the divine and are deepening their relationship with the divine, and to develop that relationship and fine-tune that relationship, and to the point where you don't feel separation from it, is such a gift to awaken in your life, and that to live by.
Or if you do feel the separation, that you have an understanding of what's happening and how to come back to that sense of connection, of course, because we're not separate from it ever, but just even to catch it and even to know, because that's the thing that started me really being so passionate about this, is that I knew when I was separate, I felt the separation, but I did not know how to get myself back unless I was going to some retreat or to some teacher. And I didn't want to be dependent on that anymore. I just wanted to be able to come back to spirit.
Which would be a combination of principle or module 2, the divine love affair, like how to really deepen your relationship with it, to know how to communicate with it and relate to it in your private personal life and when you're around people, at a level that will blow your mind. I mean, to go really deep into that and clear out everything that's in the way of you really trusting existence, really trusting spirit, or whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of residue still in our bodies of brainwashing from, religious brainwashing, our upbringing, that are keeping a little bit of a taboo and nope, that's esoteric bullshit, I'm not going there, and keeping it outside the self a little bit, without us realizing that's our own power, that's our own intelligence, our own self that we're somehow separating from. So diving into that there, and then also picking up on module number 4, Only Love is Real, which is a bit of a cliche, the title, but we really unpack that to make it very clear why it's not just the cliche or platitude that it seems to be, but in fact, we're diving deep into observer consciousness in that principle. And where, like you were saying, we can get to a place where we are so rooted in our relationship with spirit that even when we feel separate, or when we feel mistrust and terrified and all the things, that we have learned the skills to even take that and recognize, it's not love. It therefore is not true. It's not real. And knowing how then to work with the universe to alchemize that rather than bypassing it, or like you say, going and getting a fix and going to another workshop or another teacher and creating codependency. This is a great way to do it yourself, to heal it and get through it yourself.
It's a do-it-yourself course.
It is a do-it-yourself course with the help of others in community who are also doing it themselves. Exactly.
And which is also really a part of speeding up the process. One is to understand it. Of course, you sit in the magic and you don't understand. Then you understand, and then you need to practice it. And then you have people around to practice it with, which to me has just been, mind-blowing how fast that moves things.
Tremendously.
And how, you have every day. Otherwise, you go out and you need to talk to your boss, and he's not exactly going to give you feedback on whether that was your thing or his thing, or, but there you have people that are looking at the same themes and are looking at the same issues, and we can help each other with that. So,
and another important point to mention is that each of these 9 principles synergistically work together. They're not in order. They're not, one is not more important than the other. And it's so important for me to emphasize that, because already I'm just finishing a 4 or 5 week workshop tour here in Europe. And, very powerful workshops, and beginning to mention this collaboration next year, and people say, oh, I'm really excited about this one or that one or this one or that one. And that's great. And that's fine. And you need to follow your intuition to go to whichever one you want to go to. But for example, conscious communication, which is module principle number 6. So many people are so excited about learning how to communicate in a conscious manner, communicating from your hara, your dantian, and learning how to take in feedback and give feedback in the most loving, conscious way possible, learning about clean anger, etc., etc. And what I want to emphasize is I did not get to the place of being able to articulate myself well in the therapy space and learn how to do conscious communication with that in a vacuum. I learned it because I was committed to learning the language of energy. If I don't know or can't read the language of energy, I'm going to struggle in being able to sense where the other person's at that I'm talking to, on when to pause and when to keep talking and when to take in. And if I didn't have the divine love affair really rooted in my heart and soul and center and every part of me, then I wouldn't be able to recognize that in every communication I'm having with every soul, I'm listening for spirit talking to me always. So it takes out the piece of when someone's giving me feedback, I'm like, great spirit, is that you talking to me? Or is it the person? And it takes out the competitive and the reactive need to defend, etc. So they're all necessary. They're all one, really. And this was why it took me 15 years to figure out the wisest way to separate these things that are actually all one. So in each module, even though, for example, the first one's called Sacred Space, Holy Guidance, and yes, it will focus on the power of sacred space and what exactly that is. It'll focus on holy guidance, meaning our spiritual teachers, what role and function they play, issues with authority, dysfunctional spiritual teachers, and what to look out for, etc., etc. We may focus on that, but I can also guarantee you that every other one of the 8 principles will come up and will be touched upon in number 1, and the same in number 2 and 3, and so on.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good basic idea of what to expect. There will be again more coming on our websites in January. We'll be covering each one of these modules. And
doing a separate short podcast for each one.
Right, that's right. Starting also somewhere in next year.
Yeah. Who is this program for?
Yes.
Would you like to dive into that, Kanika?
who is this program for? This program is not for the faint of heart. I like to start off with that. This is really for people that are hungry to, hungry to really understand what's going on in cellular transformation and to want to apply it to make it their lifestyle. We really are interested in people that want to walk this path, that I don't want to just have a quick fix or a spiritual bypass or anything like that, but that are really willing and committed to continue on this path also together. I also do feel it's creating a very, very strong community of people that are courageous enough to dismantle their identifications, that are willing to really look at what is false within them and to support that which is true in themselves and others. And that is, a beautiful and also challenging process at times. And you want to say a little bit more about who else it's
Yeah, and maybe just an additional point of come as you are, like where you're at in your life right now, or next April or May or June or whatever, because this is not a strict, there's no strict itinerary. It's not a fixed educational program in a tight box. It's fluid, it's experiential. And just like the CT workshops, a massive component of it is going to be going with the flow and trusting the energy. And I know how spirit works with each of us. It wants us to come as we are and bring what's going on in our private lives, what's going on in our relationships, what pain are we dealing with, what joy are we embracing, and bring it in. Like all is welcome. Like that's what we want you to do. So there's no need to, I not be perfect, but no need to separate your world from what you're going to be doing in this space, because really the energy is transforming all of it. So
so it's also not so much about the themes that you're coming with or the issues you're coming with, but really with the longing to learn this transformational process for yourself.
Yeah.
And to bring it into your world too, I mean, that's what we do when we start integrating it into ourselves and into our daily life. It just starts affecting our world around us. So
big time. And finally, I'd like to just mention too that I know you said already, I'm not physically present. Too much for me to fly back and forth from the US all the time, nor would I want to be physically present, because I completely and utterly trust you, Kanika, and the team, our incredible staff, the DIMA staff, who I've also been working very intimately with for a long time. And it is so perfect how the universe is setting it up, because it frees up my energy to write, to access and to articulate in depth the teachings. And I need time to do that. And then you have skills that I don't have in relationship to community living and holding community space, all the different other modalities that you've done and have a lot of experience with in your life will be amalgamated into a degree, adapted, but various different exercises and practices and daily meditations and all the bits and pieces that I rarely get time in my working field to do, because as soon as we sit in that CT workshop space, it's just the lights coming through high speed. And I am overjoyed to see what happens in this. It couldn't be a better union.
An experiment for us as well. And it's really a part of the experiment is applying, CT is that experiment somehow, this collaboration. And it just feels very, very alive and aligned with what's happening in the world in this field to me.
It does. And I will be working very closely with you, obviously, and the team throughout from the US. So you'll feel me. I mean, there's no question, just like I did an online course for the first time ever last year. And I was not physically running that course. I was writing it in the background and the mentors were running it, but my energy was very present. So I will be there 100% in spirit with you all the whole time, trying not to micromanage from across the ocean.
And fail at it.
Trying not to like, overdo it. But yeah, I mean, of course I don't need to. I completely trust, but I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, we'll be really we're working very, very closely on this together and with spirit. And I think also just to clarify, we will be doing CT circles, but it won't be like CT workshops. It's not going to be it doesn't have the same structure and intensity. It's almost like really teasing the whole thing apart, slowing it down for us to start understanding what's happening and how we can practice those elements. I think we did cover that, but just to make that clear.
Yeah, that's really good.
We're gonna in a minute put up on the screen the save the dates, which are just the dates for now of each of these modules of the different series of threes, the spring series, the summer series, and the autumn series, and also the cellular transformation workshops that Jennifer will be holding, 2 in April and 2 in November of next year.
At DIMA, yeah.
At DIMA, obviously super complementary to the whole thing and really a prerequisite to continue to really then apply what we've learned more and more and understand how the magic works.
And if you haven't done a workshop with me, then you will need to do a private session in order to come to do the teaching program at DIMA. You'll have to do a private session with one of the facilitators, one of my trained facilitators, in order to enter.
Exactly. Also, all the information, websites, and all of that will be posting down here. Do we want to say a little bit about how we even got to do this, just quickly? Or yeah? I mean, basically we fell in love with each other through the love we have.
Yes.
To spirit, to this work, to the transformational process. I mean, basically we met and it was just like a fireworks.
Yeah.
I'll describe it.
Totally. Recognition.
Yes, exactly.
Somebody as mad as me on the path that's so devotional and hungry for it. It's such a gift to have met you.
And it was just a natural unfolding. I mean, of course, Jennifer now has been my mentor for a couple of years, and it's a dream really to be able to bring this to a bigger field, because she's just one person, and we can't rely on her to
painful
workshops back to back. It does take a lot. And I'm just, super grateful that you're sharing this with us and you're entrusting this with us, and that we're getting to really take a lot of people on this path with us. Yeah.
Yes, likewise. And
okay.
One last little thing.
Yes.
Just tiny little point on, we ask and hope that you stay in residence for each of the modules at DIMA. Rather than, I know there's a lot of you live on the island of Mallorca, and maybe just assume that you can go home and come back. And we would really prefer that you stay for the 7 days or however 21 days or 14, whatever it is you're doing, because that's where you're going to get the most benefits. Yeah. I think that's it. I think we covered a lot.
Beautiful. It's also getting dark outside, I'm just noticing. So, my dear, lovely to see you again. I'll see you tomorrow again.
Yes.
Bye to everybody else. There'll be infos coming up in a minute. Well, just a couple of seconds after this. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you.
Hope to see you next year at DIMA for an amazing journey. Really, we are super excited.
So excited. And thank you all for listening once again. And I'm really excited to come back in 2023. Yay. Mwah. Ciao. See you soon.